So here's the thing with homemade meals. Eating them is great, but all the chopping and measuring and cleanup, not so much. With new one-pan assemble and bake meals from Blue Apron, you get all the flavor of homemade meals with a fraction of the work. Just assemble the pre-chopped ingredients, bake in the oven, and enjoy. Shop, assemble, and bake at BlueApron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit BlueApron.com/terms for more.
Well, it's been pretty good because United haven't lost, which makes a change, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I was thinking earlier today, maybe David Moyes is all right. It might come good. And I'm sort of thinking, why is that? Oh, yeah, it's because we haven't played for ages and I've forgotten what it's like to actually watch them play.
Talking of awful football, England play as we record, so we can have a little chat about the internationals, but we'll be talking blind because we are recording before all the internationals are finished. But international break, slightly weird one, this one, in that there's no actual downtime in the Premier League programme. Straight back at it at the weekend. United at the Hawthorns to play relegation fodder West Brom, so a bit difficult for us, that one.
We had a break in the Premier League programme, didn't we, because Manchester City were too busy playing a cup final to play us. I don't know, got ideas above their station nowadays, going off and winning trophies instead of playing the Manchester derby.
They are the biggest team in Manchester, apparently, although Pellegrini is enjoying managing Manchester United. I tell you what, there's a few fans out there that wouldn't mind that one. Can we do a swap, maybe?
Are you one of those, Ed?
No, I think Moyes should have another transfer window.
I can't believe we've started already. So the reality of Manchester United not playing football is that it can make for a podcast with little content, but never fear, we're here to cover all the major stories of the week. Lots of very upsetting off-field things have happened this week. Today, Nemanja Vidic, I was really kind of grossed out by this. Nemanja Vidic pictured signing his new Inter Milan contract. Is it normal that a player who's leaving at the end of the season would have pictures of him signing released by his new club?
Yeah, it is a little odd, and I'm not sure the timing helps anyone. You know, sure, Milan want to make a fuss about it, and maybe David Moyes doesn't care because it appears that Vidic would have stayed if the deal had been right and Moyes had wanted him, but apparently neither of those things were the case. I think it's a bit strange because are we saying we're not competing for anything anymore? We've given up on fourth place. You know, if it comes down to a 50-50 tackle and Vidic has got to put his body on the line, are we saying that he won't have lost any edge given that he's signed for someone else and his mind won't be elsewhere? So it's very strange. Rarely happens, of course. You know, with Bosmans they can sign up 6 months ahead of time, and Lewandowski's going to Bayern, and we all know about that one. And Mario Götze had effectively signed months beforehand as well. And whoever Bayern decide to steal from Borussia Dortmund next will probably go in a similar fashion. But it's not that usual, and certainly not the big clubs.
And it really was the picture that got me. It was that kind of picture speaks 1,000 words thing, because obviously the reality of the situation doesn't change, but there was just something about it, something really tangible about it, and it felt like, okay, so maybe Moyes doesn't care, but I think that is further indictment of Moyes. If you look at, I hate to say this really, but if you look at what Mourinho's done to John Terry this season and contrast it to what Moyes has done to Ferdinand and Vidic, you know, he's alienated them, overworked them, killed their confidence and their feeling for the club as it stands at the moment, and some of that's on the player, right? They have some responsibility. They're supposed to be senior players. I mean, the fact that Nemanja Vidic angled in his contract to be made club captain last time round, it's more complex than this, but essentially it looks as soon as things go bad, all right, see you lads, you know, it was fun being captain while I was lifting all those trophies, but no interest in stomach for the fight sort of thing, and that's not necessarily what you associate with Nemanja Vidic, and I certainly wouldn't say it to his face.
Well, no, of course, the inside track on this one appears to be that he would have been prepared to stay if the deal had been right, and United were really only prepared to let him stay or offer him another contract at substantially reduced wages, right? Which is a reflection of of the club's apparent value in him. And so I make of that what you will. I think if United had come up with the numbers and wanted to come up with the numbers, Vidic probably would have stayed. So it's not a case of him jumping ship and being captain and disappearing. I'm not quite sure I buy that as a story. I do buy the fact that Moyes has wanted to make a change, and he's wanted to make a change for many reasons. And what this is a difficult one in a way, because Vidic is he has been a key defender. He's been a superb leader. He's been with the club for over 8 years. There's surely a bit more to come out of him. It would have been worth keeping him around the squad, given that we think quite a lot of change is about to happen in the squad. He's one of the most experienced heads, and there's a very good argument for keeping Vidic. At the same time, he's lost a bit of pace alongside Ferdinand. It leaves United playing extremely deep. It's really troublesome in Moyes' preferred 4-4-2 system. If you think about the way that Ferguson played 4-4-2 when he did in the early years, he pushed the two centre-backs up, he pushed full-backs very high, and he played 2v2 in attacking versus defensive situations. United cannot do that. Playing Vidic and Ferdinand means United sit very deep. It means the two central midfielders sit very deep. It means they have this huge gap between the midfield and the attack, and basically end up punting a lot of long balls forward, which partly is by design and partly a consequence of Vidic and Ferdinand still being in the side. So I can kind of see why, in a way, that you'd want to make the transition. There's a lot of good arguments for keeping Vidic in and around the squad for at least another season. Yeah,
absolutely, and I also think it's a question of misuse. He's been used badly, and that's part of the reason that yard of pace has made so much difference, because players adapt their game at that age, don't they? Or they should anyway. And I think it will be a brilliant move for Vidic going to Italy. He's gonna love it there, right? That's going to extend his career by 2-3 years or whatever, and Mrs. Vidic will be happy.
Probably play till he's 40 there. I mean, he's it's not all about pace. The game's a couple of yards slower. They like a defender in Italy, don't they? All the cliches coming out here. I think he'll do fine, and Mrs. Vidic will enjoy shopping. Although I have to say, I've been to Milan a few times. Can't say I really like it. It's the Birmingham of Italy, I'd say.
Hey, leave it out, son. No need for that sort of thing. Birmingham's got excellent shopping these days. You don't buy at all the idea that he's sort of bailing. You buy into the idea that he's just not been offered what he considers to be a fair price by the club, so he's going elsewhere instead.
Well, I wouldn't put this on a 2-axis graph. It's not. It's there are nuances in the debate, right? So it's about what kind of deal they could have offered him, what kind of position status within the squad, and how United are doing as a team. And I'm sure all those things factored into play. He's still a top player of some degree or another, you'd put this question to yourself if you were Vidic, even if you wanted to stay and even if the deal was right, do you want to spend the last sort of 2 years of your career, the last 2 years he's got at the top, fighting it out in mid-table?
Well, yeah, I suppose you don't. Well, very clearly he does not, does he? And this whole situation, Vidic has never been on side with Moyes, right? This is a perfectly reasonable inference from what's happened. And another player that's clearly, unless the press are just taking it and running with it, and it was a terrible mistranslation, but it basically looks like Van Persie and Moyes are done at the moment. The breaking ranks after Olympiacos was a bridge too far, and it's been briefing and counter-briefing every day. Pretty much there's been a story either about Van Persie considering leaving or Moyes considering selling him, and there was the phrase, it is understood that he is keen on a return to his former club. That seems rather far-fetched to me, but you never know.
I mean, I think it's one of the fascinating things about this season, how the kind of narrative has played out between the lines of the what is the public script. So the public script is it's a season of transition, and Moyes has to come in and become his own man, and then from the fan side it's been disappointing, a bit of a failure, and Woodward was screwed up in the transfer market and all of that. But between all of that, there's some subtle stuff going on. So Woodward has a penchant for phoning the press in a way that David Gill didn't, right? And Gill only did it with the really big issues, and Woodward, it seems, is has this kind of odd quirk about personally briefing, and This has happened quite a lot. So the stories about United's potential transfer fund, how exactly United wrapped up the Mata deal, the issues around the summer screw-ups in the transfer market or otherwise, depending on who you believe, exactly what the owners do or don't expect, their support for Moyes, and so on. And, it all keeps coming out. And then issues around individual players, the fact that players are clearly briefing the press in a way that would have never happened under Ferguson. And I cannot imagine, for example, Vidic coming out and taking a picture with an opposition, in a very loose sense, opposition, major European club under Ferguson, for example. It would have been handled in a very different way. To transfer rumours, to Van Persie's team briefing the press, whether it's here or in Holland, on a weekly basis. So, it's really interesting how that kind of has played out this season in a way that hasn't before. And then specifically on Van Persie, so the noises from his camp have been quite clear all season, and I know people have taken individual quotes, but Van Persie's quite smart, right? So in public he says one thing, and in private he's clearly saying another, or via his team clearly saying another, and you can see it in the body language. This man is frustrated and not happy.
I have to say, I'm slightly gutted about his behaviour too. I'm saying these things both about Vidic and Van Persie slightly for the sake of balance, rather than to just be because life is nuanced and blame never really lies firmly on one side or the other. And I have to say I can completely understand why Van Persie's behaved in the way he has, because Alex Ferguson said in his book that he told him he was not going anywhere. He was staying for the long haul. I'm sure Van Persie was gutted when he found out Ferguson was retiring. I'm sure he was double gutted when he found out David Moyes was coming. And especially after the first, 6 weeks, when it was pretty clear what the Moyes era would mean. It's been pretty miserable for Van Persie, right?
People get quite hyperbolic about things when it comes to footballers, but think about it like this, you get a job with some hotshot CEO, I don't know, Richard Branson or whatever, and you think you're going to work with this guy who you've admired all your life, and all of a sudden David Brent turns up, and of course you're going to be disappointed. So Van Persie was sold one thing, got another very shortly afterwards, and not only was it the mentor that disappeared, but it was the style of management as well. So, for example, not being allowed to train in the way he wanted to, until clearly he made a big enough fuss that Moyes did a 180 and started allowing him to, being played when he was clearly not feeling like he was ready, and overplayed and overtrained in the summer. So, I have some kind of sympathy with Van Persie, even if it's starting to look like he's throwing his toys out of the pram.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I agree with every word of that. And now it's reached a point where his behaviour is kind of crossing some sort of line of professionalism, because he kind of went out on a limb after that Olympiacos game, and I'm going to give him some benefit of the doubt for some mistranslation of emphasis, or it looks worse than it was in the cold light of English. But it's that classic thing, isn't it? You brief the press in your home country about things when you're not happy with your club in a foreign country. Van Persie's far from the first person to do that.
Plausible deniability.
Absolutely, which I've kind of just given him all that benefit of the doubt. Maybe he just wanted plausible deniability. But either way, I have gone from kind of expecting it all to be okay and him to work it out to being, I don't know, 70 to 80% sure he's going to leave in the summer, and I just think it's really sad, and I'm starting to really, really dislike David Moyes, and it's not because I don't like him personally or anything. It's the Moyes era. Everything about the Moyes era is kind of horrible. All the players I like are being marginalised. All the players I don't like are being given massive contracts and made captain. All right, one of the players. It's like the only one I don't particularly care for, pretty much. So it's even he's all right anyway, but that's just me. I'm a soppy head. But he doesn't like Raphael, he doesn't like Robin van Persie, he doesn't like Shinji Kagawa. It's like, what are you trying to do? Last year we were on the verge of becoming a likeable team, and now he just built us around Wayne Rooney, and it's just really unfortunate. The style of football's horrible, and we're going into this run. We'll talk about the West Brom game later, but we're going into this run where we play West Brom away, which should be a complete doddle because they're in absolute chaos, but probably we won't make it look like a doddle. And then we're at home to Liverpool, Olympiacos, and then City. And just don't think I've ever had this little enthusiasm for a series of fixtures like that. It should be really exciting, right? But instead it's just the grim inevitability. If it's going to go one of two ways, we're either going to scrape wins which keep David Moyes in the job, or we're going to get hammered, and neither of those sound particularly appealing.
Yeah, well, I've got a few thoughts on that fixture list. First, just one last thing on Van Persie. I mean, you said 70 to 80% sure that he's going to go in the summer. I'm not sure about that. So even if he is unhappy, I think United's default position at the moment is the one they took with Wayne Rooney. So they have Van Persie under contract for another 3 years. They have no need to sell him whatsoever, unless they get a good price and they have someone else to come in. But tell me the number of players that are available in Van Persie's class for a fee under 50 million. Because there aren't very many, and so that's a big calculation. So be interesting, that one. If Van Persie did try and force United's hand, which he clearly did with Arsenal, albeit in a reasonably subtle way, whether United buckle, because I'm not sure they will. There's they've taken the default position now with Wayne Rooney, I think, and that probably maps across the other players, which is interesting. Just a little sidebar. John Henry this week revealing that Luis Suarez did have a £40 million exit clause in his contract, and it wasn't just we'll let you talk at £40 million. They just barefaced lied and basically said to Arsenal, come sue us.
That's amazing, isn't it? He basically said something like the contracts in Europe aren't really worth anything anyway. It's like, he's just blown the whole game wide open, man.
Well, I mean, a tort lawyer might argue with that one. They are worth something, and the fact that United held Wayne Rooney to his contract last summer when Rooney was desperate to join Chelsea, says they are worth that. Players cannot just walk out. So Suarez could have taken Liverpool to court and said, this is a breach of my contract.
Yeah, absolutely, but he clearly didn't want to do that, and briefing this week that he's going to stay even if they don't get into the Champions League. I think he might be saying that because it really looks like they're going to get into the Champions League, to be honest.
Yeah, much as we'd like them to blow it, I think they probably will. And anyway, look, you mentioned the fixture list coming up. West Brom at the weekend, the easiest of the fixtures through March, but then there's Liverpool at home, West Ham United away, Olympiacos at home, and City at home. And West Ham are doing all right at the moment, not great, but I think they'll probably stay up. City going great guns generally. Liverpool, blowing more hot than cold. So it could be a really, really nasty set of results for David Moyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep coming back to this idea that he's going to do just enough in these next few fixtures that he's not going to be sacked at the end of them, sort of thing. Like, I don't know, beat West Brom, draw against Liverpool, and then a kind of, I don't know, an unlucky late away goal knocks us out of Europe, and I think City will beat us at home, but I don't think he'd get sacked for that.
No, and United, I suspect, will take a very cautious approach to some of those fixtures, right? So the Liverpool and City games, I think Moyes will look at the table and think there's not much chance for us making fourth. With City winning the Carling Cup, sixth place gets a Europa League spot. If another of the Champions League winners wins the FA Cup, then seventh place will. So it's starting to look like it's not that difficult to get into Europe, and going for a point against Liverpool and City is probably, in David Moyes' mind, acceptable.
It's just not, though, is it? It's just not. What is the point? What is the point? We'll get sixth anyway, probably, right? Well, maybe not. That means we have to get sixth. We have to finish above Everton and Tottenham, don't we?
Well, above Everton. So, and then we're competing with like Southampton and Newcastle for seventh spot. That's our level, lads. It's anyway. It's not good, and No need to go on to too much of a rant about David Moyes because we had a big one last week and he actually hasn't done anything bad this week for us to have a rant about.
Having been kind of like easing up on my feelings about David Moyes as we haven't played, just talking about all this stuff is bringing it all up again. So, yeah, because I think it's been 3 weeks in a row that we've had a big, massive, long David Moyes rant. But what else is there to feel like... I don't know. I'm really susceptible to the idea of giving him time. Like when people talk about it, I kind of think, oh yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong about some of this stuff. And then you say we compete with Newcastle and Southampton for 7th, and it's just so far away from being good enough. Anyway, as you say, no big long David Moyes rant. Just a stuttering, frustrated attempt to say something about him.
So, anyway, this week I also wanted to mention another of the players or people at Manchester United who've come into a lot of criticism this season. Tom Cleverley, a petition put up on the internet. This is how low the internet is. Gained 12,000 votes. Petition to ban Tom Cleverley from the England side. I mean, I have to say this kind of stuff. Whatever you think about Tom Cleverley, it's pretty desperate and sad, isn't it?
Yeah, I really feel for Tom Cleverley. I think it's stupid scapegoat. I mean, I know he said himself that he feels like he's being scapegoated and held himself up to further ridicule by saying that, but I mean, it just is scapegoating, really. It's like, there's no way Tom Cleverley isn't good enough for the England midfield, by the way, also. He might not be good enough for Man United, but he's probably good enough for England. I wonder how many of those 12,000 signatures are United fans. Probably quite a lot, I would imagine, because...
an internet poll is going to be swarmed by Liverpool fans, isn't it? Because that's what they do.
Clearly. But I mean, I have to say, you wouldn't be that surprised the petition with 12,000 signatures was going around to keep it outside of United's midfield. He's really despised by United fans, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, look, let's separate the Twitter sphere. Because it's its own little bubble, and United fans generally, I don't see any hate at Old Trafford for Tom Cleverley. Do you? I mean,
yeah, there's loads of match-going Reds, as it were, are very critical of Tom Cleverley in my experience. Not all of them, obviously, but there's a huge amount of criticism for him from all different stripes of fans, the Twitter sphere, the broader kind of international fan base, and match-going fans.
Anyway, well, Tom Cleverley, I mean, Roy Hodgson defended him and said when he's playing well and United's results pick up, then he can take all the praise he can get. So... we'll see. There was a time, of course, when Tom Cleverley came in for a lot of praise and we thought he'd develop into a player he hasn't become, when we thought he'd have a more expansive goal-scoring game that he hasn't got, or at least has left him. And so I think, a lot of the criticism is not only that he's very passive in his play and he's very cautious and... in his approach to the game, he takes very few risks, but also he hasn't developed to the point that many United fans want, and that frustration is disappointment as well as frustration with the quality of the player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've no idea how good he is. I think he's in incredibly bad form, has been for most of this season, was pretty good against Arsenal, but I don't think you can get an accurate barometer of what kind of player he is, given that he's playing in a midfield that's completely unsuited to his talent.
Point made by Rob_B, Rob Blanchett, one of your fellow list builders, who said on Twitter today that Cleverley, is decent in a 4-3-3 and completely unsuited to 4-4-2. Oh, and by the way, most of the United players are completely unsuited to a 4-4, which I thought was a simplified but fair point. Really, there are many players at United, given that we have about 25 number 10s, and most of our central midfielders would do much better in a 3 in midfield. That we're probably playing the wrong system. Got the wrong coach though, so it looks like we're going to go off and try and change the entire team in the summer to fit the system that the coach wants to play.
So the Daily Mail today, excuse me while I spit 3 times for having mentioned the Daily Mail on this radical left-wing institution that is the Rantcast, but the Daily Mail saying that Manchester United, David Moyes is looking to make 8 signings in the summer, and that Kagawa, Hernandez, Van Persie, Evra, Vidic, Ferdinand will all be leaving. Oh, and Nani and Anderson. So there's 8 players out of the squad. It seems far-fetched that all those players will leave, but not out of the realms of possibility.
No, I mean, I said, I think they're just copying my piece from earlier in the season when I said between 8 and 13 players would leave, and some of those 13 are fringe. because you can add Macheda into that and Bebe as well. Fabio's already gone. No, I wouldn't actually be that surprised given the contractual situation. So we know at least definitely 3 are going, and Anderson, almost certainly Nani will go, and then there's question marks over Hernandez and Kagawa in particular, and then throw Robin van Persie into there, which I've said maybe not on that one, and you've got an awful lot of players going. Question there for me is whether United have the funds and the nous in order to go and replace them all, because we haven't seen that so far.
I think it's pretty clear that they don't, but we'll see. But it's further kind of indication of what a problematic thing the David Moyes reign is, because it's all very well to say, the squad's not good enough, they've let the manager down, but it's his job to make them not let him down. That's the kind of bottom line of it. And if you look through that list of players, people have lots of negative opinions about Shinji Kagawa, but I think they're crazy. I really do. I mean, not entirely unfounded, but wrong. Hernandez, there's weaknesses to his game, but you can't say he hasn't proved himself to be effective as a Manchester United player. He's made a positive contribution on the way through. Robin van Persie was our most important player last season, and Vidic and Ferdinand are 2 of the best defenders of their generation. And yeah, their time is passing, but as we said earlier about Vidic, it was not inevitable. I think Evra may have gone either way, or he may have been more likely to stay another season to mentor and manage the transition to his replacement if it was under Alex Ferguson. But I think if Monaco come in with a pile of cash, you can understand him leaving. But it just looks like absolute managerial negligence to let that much talent get that unhappy that quickly.
It does, doesn't it? Interesting, the internationals are on, and Shinji Kagawa scored one, made one for Japan versus New Zealand. Not the toughest of opposition, I might add. Elsewhere, as we said, Smalling and Rooney starting for England, Carrick and Cleverley and Welbeck also in the squad. Fletcher due to play for Scotland against Poland. Well done, Darren Fletcher, back in the international scene. Yeah, Valencia. Nice short trip, this one, playing away in Australia. That's going to do his chances of starting at the weekend a world of good. France played Netherlands, so no Van Persie involved, I don't believe, but no, maybe he was. And then obviously Evra for France, still in there despite being despised by his country. Nigeria were playing Mexico, so Hernandez opportunity to score, add to his 750 goals at international level, because he's no good, but he will end up becoming the top goal scorer in Mexican history very shortly. Fellaini playing for Belgium against the Ivory Coast. Bunch of kids in the England under-21s as well. Keane, Lingard, Zaha, Johnston, all in the England under-21 setup. So, quite a few United players out with the internationals. Quite a few will go to the World Cup, around a dozen or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Juan Mata not in the Spain squad, which just makes you look at Spain and go, it's just not fair. It is just not fair. Like, international football-wise, they've got the whole thing locked up, right? It should be considered cheating, basically. I'm looking forward to us buying the majority of the German midfield in the summer, though. That'll be good.
Yes, if Bayern Munich don't get in there first, of course.
Which they will. Of course. All right, let's do a bunch of Twitter questions because there's not been games. So, at DA10EL says, watching Norway's friendly, Mats Muladali looks like Shinji on speed. Would Mats be a hit at Dortmund, do you think? Maybe. He seems good. I think he might have been good enough to stay at United if he didn't want the first team football straight away that he did want. Because he's a pretty good player, isn't he? But
talented lad, and we'll see where he goes with his career. He's very, very young, and he may or may not make it at the top level. But he's taken a circuitous route through to the top. Maybe it'll work out for him. Maybe he'll come to wish that he was at United. I mean, I think for a lot of young players who stick around at United until they're 22, 23, you kind of wonder whether they should have gone earlier. So he took the bold decision, decided that there wasn't a route through to the first team for him. Went back home, back in the Premier League. You'd think he'd get an opportunity at Cardiff that he wouldn't have done at United.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at it cleverly, that's it, right? In the United team of that sort of age profile. They're older than Mats, but, takes a long time to break through into the United first team. There's only really Evans is the other one, right? But there's very few in the first team. So
Cleverley, Welbeck, Evans. That's about it.
At Ed Barber says, I'm unable to watch Manchester United this weekend. Should I be pleased?
Depends on the result, mate.
Yeah, I think let's do that retroactively. No, it's always all right to watch Manchester United, even when they're bad. They're still Man United, you know. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I kind of always end up preferring watching them even when they lose. Really,
look, that's what being a fan's about, isn't it? You want to watch them because there's always some hope, even with David Moyes in charge.
And as Jonathan Wilson said on the Guardian podcast this week, it's winning isn't everything. It really isn't. Like the expectation that it's nice when you win, but it doesn't have to be an expectation. It doesn't have to be a prerequisite of enjoying football.
No, right. You like to be entertained by some good football as well.
Out of the two of us, let me just remind you, listeners, I'm the one who's overtly Moyes out. At Graham P. Chapman says, what would you like to see David Moyes giving up for Lent? Managing Manchester United, obviously.
Breathing?
No, not breathing. Just
the long ball.
Yeah. Crossing, maybe. That's sort of weirdly religiously appropriate. Talking to the press. Saying the word try. That's it. You've got to give up the word try for Lent. There's no way David Moyes could stick to that for the whole period of Lent. Will Manchester United have to set up a support line if this month goes as badly as it could for us? Says at Billiam MUFC. No, that's what the internet's for. You'll be fine.
There is a support line. It's called the Season Ticket Sales Office, and they're doing all the outbound calling to try and get people to sign on. It'd be interesting how the season ticket sales go. Of course, you know, traditionally many of them come in quite late, although the deadline keeps getting it earlier. But no decision yet made on whether United will both include the Europa League in the automatic cup ticket scheme and whether it will be at full price. Be interesting. Some noises that it won't be included and the ticket prices will be cut, which would be a very good decision, but we'll see on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we finish 7th, it won't matter anyway.
Well, maybe, yeah.
At JSF_7 says name one defender, midfielder and attacker you want at United next season. Brackets realistic options. I just lost all sense of what's realistic and what's not realistic. Like Tony Cruz, does that count as a realistic option? It won't go away, the talk about it, but to me it feels like Fabregas all over again.
Yeah, I mean, right at this point, I'd say he's probably quite happy to use the United connection to aid his contract negotiations. So I'm not sure that's realistic. Gundogan is probably realistic, although looks like Bayern are sniffing around. On the defenders front, there's a couple of left backs I like. Kurosawa at Monaco. I think he's got more talent than he's actually shown this season. And Rodriguez in the Bundesliga, who's very, very good. I do like him. It looks like actually United are sniffing around Felipe of Atletico Madrid, which, you know, yeah, he's good, but we'll see. And what else did I have to give? I had to give a forward. I'd give a forward I like. Can we muscle in on Lewandowski?
No, very clearly not. Edinson Cavani's not happy about being played on the left wing at Paris Saint-Germain. I see no problem financially with us matching the wages he's on there.
Yeah, plus the £60-odd million fee. Yeah, I don't think that one's very realistic either.
No, absolutely. Moreno from Sevilla, the left back, and you know, Koke signed another contract. Is it Koke or Coke? I don't know. Let's go with Coke and be really ignorant. He signed another contract.
What do you prefer, Paul? Koke or Coke?
I like his football ability either way, and he signed a new contract, so he'll be expensive. But I don't know if that's a deal breaker or not, or if it was just a contract to get value out of a potential sale. But we'll see on that one. That one's gone a little quiet for sure, hasn't it, since he signed that contract. At Benny Hudson says, would you rather be stuck in a lift for 1 hour with a Glazer apologist or a Moyes apologist? Definitely a Moyes apologist for me.
Yes, the Glazer lot I've just had enough of. I can't even bother talking to them anymore. I just hit the block button straight away.
The thing with the Moyes apologist is I kind of want to be a Moyes apologist at heart. You know, I just can't find it in my intellect to do it. Like I can't find a way at which it makes sense, but I'm perfectly happy to talk for an hour with a Moyes apologist. But Glazer apologists are just ignorant, you know. It's the only thing, and It sounds really insulting to call people ignorant, but I don't even mean it as an insult. I mean, they just haven't educated themselves properly on the truth of the situation. Because if you're a Glazer apologist, then you literally just don't understand the situation. So yeah, there we go. And unless you're a Glazer apologist in the sense that you're like personal friends with them and you care much more about their financial well-being than Manchester United, in which case it's perfectly reasonable to be a Glazer apologist, but no other circumstances exist in which it is reasonable.
Yeah.
@_Akalik Arif says, I'm finally in time. Referring to Rankcast questions, he says, being as I am firmly Moyes out, meaning me, not him, if he was fired today, who could conceivably replace him? I think you just get someone in the interim and then get a proper manager in the summer. And I think we've had fairly lengthy discussions about possible replacements. I think there's a lot of really excellent, really attainable replacements out there this summer.
Ring, Herr Presidente of Borussia Dortmund. Yeah. Would you take £200 million for Klopp, Hummels, Gundogan, Royce? Who else can we steal?
That'll do, frankly. I reckon that's value at that price.
Yeah, thank you, bye.
Absolutely, and if that doesn't work, hola, el presidente, como vamos el Diego Simeone?
Interesting character, Diego Simeone. Wonder how well he'd adapt to Old Trafford life. I mean, said to be a very determined, fiery sort. Which you could probably, believe because he was that kind of player on the pitch too.
You say said to be a determined, fiery sort. I'm pretty sure visibly with your own eyes watching him as a footballer on the touchline, a fiery, determined sort.
Yes, I mean, the thing that worries about me is the hue of his face on occasion. He does have this tendency to go a little red. So, great for following Fergie. He did the same thing too.
Absolutely. Red Diego. It's ready-made. Okay. @Hunt_Bunt says, why was Jesse sent on loan and not into the matchday squad? Would rather see him getting a chance over Tony and Young.
Well, because I think you know the answer to that one, because he wasn't going to get that opportunity, so better for him to see out the season. Little odd, though, that he had that weird little break back with the reserves and then went out on loan to a different spot, though.
I think it's interesting. I think, obviously Moyes had a long look at him pre-season, decided he wasn't quite ready where Januzaj was, and I think he wanted to see whether that time in the Championship had got him to whatever that kind of level was. I do think it's possible he'll be involved in the first team next season, though. But also it's possible he'll be shipped out because, young players, it's such a delicate thing, isn't it, transitioning a young player into the first team. There are very few Adnan Januzajs, very few players who make it abundantly clear that they belong at the top level. @ABCMSAG, friend of the Rantcast, Alex Dixon, asks who we think the next captain should be, and I would say player who made it abundantly clear that he was ready to perform at the next level, Danny Welbeck. Obvious choice for captain for the next 15 years for Manchester United.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Wayne Rooney he's got the job, basically, hasn't he? Which I find disgusting on many levels. I would probably pick someone who's matured to that position, maybe Johnny Evans or Darren Fletcher. Depends what we're talking about. Are we talking about a club captain or on the pitch captain? Because I think they're two different things. I think the club captain is an ambassador for the club, which is why you don't want someone who's desperate to get out twice, shags prostitutes, smokes and drinks all the time, being club captain. If it's about leadership on the pitch, if it's about the organisation and the kind of manager on the pitch, then I'm not sure that United have an obvious candidate right now.
No, the big game, fiery battle machine that is Michael Carrick, perhaps not the best option in that regard. So, loads and loads of people asking a variation on this question, but @Speedy_Sport says, should Vidic now be dropped permanently?
What do we gain? I think you judge him on his performances, so if it looks like the edge has gone, then he'll lose his place because the edge has gone, and there'll be players performing better than him. As a punishment for going mid-season, why? David Moyes tells us that it's mutual.
Yeah, absolutely. Although that quote does literally go something like, it's a mutual decision. He came into my office and told me he was leaving.
Yes, yeah. Do you think David Moyes got dumped a lot?
I hope not. I wouldn't like to think that. At TM181989 says, which is worse, Rooney as captain or Michael Owen in the number 7 shirt? Rooney's captain's worse because you can write off the shirt number thing if you try hard enough. It's just like, oh, well, it doesn't matter anyway.
Yes, well, Owen was a poster boy for Glazonomics. And Rooney's a poster boy for himself.
Rooney's a poster boy for a slightly different version of Glazonomics in a lot of ways. Rooney's like a Woodwardnomics signing, isn't he?
Didn't quite work. You need something that rings more, Woonomics.
Edconomics. Right, at Daddy Dave Bear says, is there anything Moyes could do before the end of the season to convince you he's the right manager for next season? Convince me no, offer some hope, definitely. More tactical flexibility, an improvement in the way he deals with the press, a sense that he's moving away from frontline coaching into a more observer-type role, and a conscious decision to improve his relationship with senior members of the squad.
So the whole lot, then?
Yeah, basically. What about you, Ed? What do you want to see between now and the end of the season from Moyes?
United flipping the bird to the long ball and playing some tiki-taka. Attacking, exciting football, United being a bit more gung-ho and taking a few risks. Because frankly, United have to, right? This is, unless we're saying we've given up entirely on the season, and, unless we're saying fourth is gone, which, presumably it has, we're with the game in hand, even so, it's still what looks like 11 or 12 points. Depending on the permutations, probably has gone with 10 games to go, but shouldn't we be chasing all the way? I mean, I don't think United would have given in previous years. If United had been 10 points behind the Premier League leaders with 10 games to go, Ferguson's team would be trying to chase that down. So a bit of hunger, and some risk-taking and trying to win some football matches.
And I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see that, basically. Or so far we've seen nothing that would indicate that we are likely to see that.
And a team that includes Januzaj, Mata and Kagawa all in the same side, all at the same time.
The dream, the absolute dream. I've got a question. I quite like this question. It's from @JohnBlaze. It said, why is Ed so political when asked whether or not he's Moyes out? Is he planning to join the MUFC board?
Yeah, if they pay me my due. So I think Ferguson gets £100,000 an hour. I'll take a little bit less than that, but not much.
@44FM says, do you think David Moyes' job will finally become untenable if he headbutts Yusuf Malumbu on Saturday?
Well, that's true. I mean, I'd take on a more realistic target. I mean, if he took out Luis Suarez when United play Liverpool in a few weeks' time, I think you'd win a lot of fans. Just saying, Davey. I'm not suggesting violence here, but if that happened, if frustration got the better of you, you might be able to save your reputation with the Old Trafford faithful.
A little backstory to the next question. For those of you not on Twitter, friend of the Rantcast and indeed son of a friend of the Rantcast, @JackKHolt, runs a super mega geeky Twitter account, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, where he just periodically tweets all the players that have played for United and how many appearances they've got and how many goals they've scored. Got about 100 to 150 followers, and he was contacted by Twitter, who had been contacted by Manchester United, giving him a cease and desist order from using the Manchester United crest as his avatar for that account. Got some attention, funnily enough, soon was reactivated, that account. In fact, Jack was pursued by local press asking for quotes and to make a story out of it, which he didn't want to do, but obviously this was very overblown response from Manchester United, but this is brand protection at its finest, right? It's going after completely innocuous things because you sort of, in some ways you kind of have to protect the copyright, but also there must be tens of thousands of accounts on Twitter using the Manchester United crest in their avatar.
Yes, I assume there's some kind of agency out there that's looking into this thing. I've had cease and desist orders from the football data company in the past about using fixture lists because the powers that be attempt to squeeze a margin out of these days, so you can't even publish a fixture list. Actually, when I had that argument with them, I worked out that you're allowed to talk about 2 games. That doesn't count as a list. But if you talk about 3 games in any, a list of 3 game fixtures in a row, that counts as a football fixture list, and therefore you have to pay a licence fee for it. So I've been contacted about images. I think people are pretty well aware of image rights these days, so copyright breach over images and so on. So I think the surprising thing about this is not that United are legally wrong, it's their copyright, they haven't given permission and they can charge a fee, but that they've bothered to do it with one Twitter account and not the thousands of others that use that symbol too. And what did they attempt to think they were going to gain from it as well?
It's sort of such ridiculously poor PR. My personal feeling is that it triggered a thing because, you have your Twitter handle, but you also have a name in there, and it was Manchester United was there as the name, which I think that might have been what attracted their attention. But anyway, all this as a kind of interesting side story and a backstory to Jack's Rantcast question this week, which says, if you were United's brand protection analyst, what things would you immediately put a ban on? And he says, you can't say David Moyes, that's too obvious.
I wouldn't, I think, is the answer, because unless you're actually trying to protect the genuine commercial interests, which is, really around piracy of broadcast content and piracy of commercial merchandise, then trying to protect the brand is pointless, because for the most part, United gained significantly over brand exposure. And look, here's the reason why. And we think football is big business. In reality, compared to the big industries of the world, health, automotive, housing, telecommunications, it's puny. Right, football is puny because it has a monetization problem. It finds it very difficult to monetize everything that goes on around the industry. So it monetizes ticket sales, commercial income, broadcast. It doesn't monetize all the ancillary stuff. So Manchester United is not making any money from us doing a 1 hour podcast on the internet each week, even though we are leveraging their brand to do so. And this is generally the problem with football. But on the other hand, what United have done is start to leverage that wider appeal. So the fact that we're talking about Manchester United, the fact that there are loads of websites, the fact that there are fans in, rural China talking about Manchester United means that Manchester United can sell that brand name to random companies around the world, and that's what they're leveraging. So actually, exposure and more exposure is good. It's almost like a freemium model where you get as much of an audience as possible and then try and monetize a complementary product rather than the kind of direct sales model of the past. That's kind of one of the reasons why that action surprises me, really. Who cares if someone is using the logo, as long as they're not trying to pass themselves off as being an official channel?
Yeah, absolutely. And in answer to your question, it's pretty clear from what Ed said that the first thing a brand protection analyst should do is shut down the Rantcast, because we're clearly leveraging Manchester United's brand for our own commercial gain. Oh no, wait, we don't make any money out of it either.
I think we should start a new campaign here. Rantcast out. Hashtag.
Talking of Rantcast out, there will be another Rantcast out next week, but before that, Manchester United do play a football match against West Bromwich Albion.
Boo.
How do you see I know, football, rubbish.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, we could be talking about transfer rumours and having a pop at the manager, but no, we've got to talk about actual football. I think that we are not going to see
4-0 to the Baggies. No.
We're not going to see Robin van Persie in this one because he is ill, presumably with Moyesitis. We are not going to see Tom Cleverley, and I think it's very unlikely that we'll see any of the players that have travelled long distances. So no Kagawa, no Hernandez, not anything unusual about that, but no Valencia either. Will he play Ashley Young, or is he going to go for what I would do, which is play Welbeck ahead of Rooney with Mata and Januzaj on either side? Oh, if wishing made it so.
Yeah, no, he's going to play Valencia and Young, isn't he? No, although Valencia probably won't play because he's got that long trip back from Australia and won't arrive till Friday. So realistically, I think Mata will play on the right-hand side and perhaps Young will play on the left. But we'll see. Will he play Welbeck or Hernandez? Well, one or the other. I mean, pretty much always sticks with a 4-4-2, doesn't he? Although maybe he'll go radical and he'll play Rooney up top and Fellaini in the hole.
Yes, possibly so. I mean, against Crystal Palace, he didn't play a flat 4-4-2, and he played Januzaj and Mata, so that gives me some hope that he will play two playmakers in this game. He definitely should play two playmakers in this game, because It's funny, I did a little Q&A thing with a West Bromwich Albion site this week, and I was thinking, in the old days, if a team like West Brom saw us get beat by Olympiacos in the game before we played them, they'd be absolutely terrified, because they'd be thinking, oh my goodness, we're going to be on the end of the response here, and that's what should happen this weekend. But actually, I'm not sure that this team's got the character to make that happen, really.
Well, the response, I think it's just an empty cliche. We've just not seen it. So I can't tell you what kind of performance United will bring out. Will it be the one similar to Crystal Palace, where we actually play some decent football, and not a brilliant performance, but play some decent football and have two players tucking in? Will it be back to basics, knock it long and wide and try and get crosses in? Who knows? And certainly Berahino can cause United's back four some trouble. So I don't think this is a foregone conclusion, no matter how badly West Brom are playing, and they are playing badly.
Yeah, I mean, they really are not a good team at all at the moment. I think Steve Clarke is one of those managers that I think should have been given more time, because I think there was enough promise there to indicate that, and certainly there's been nothing to suggest that Pepe Mel was a particularly smart appointment. Rumours of players being unhappy with his tactics doing the rounds, and he might not last the season. He might do a Meulenstein and only get a brief period of the season to do the job.
Yeah, and what's going on with this? I think I'm beginning to believe that a football manager transfer window is a good idea. So how many managers can you have in one season? It used to be pretty radical for you to fire a manager in the middle of the season. Now it's very commonplace. More than half of each league will fire a manager over the course of the season. Now it's becoming fashionable to have two firings, because if they haven't turned the team round completely in 6 or 7 games, they're suddenly under pressure.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of knee-jerk reaction that is making people be really insistent that David Moyes should get time, because football's gone to the dogs, because it's a knee-jerk reaction all the time. Of course, it's not always knee-jerk to sack your manager after a relatively short period of time. Sometimes it's the sensible thing to do in the face of the evidence. Not that I've got any particular axe to grind on this front. But yeah, it does seem really crazy to sack 2 managers in the same season. It does seem like, well, you're really saying you made a horrendous mistake with the first attempt at replacing a manager if you do that, aren't you?
Yeah, not too many boards sack themselves, and I think that's the key element here, because if you pick an executive and he's the key man at the club, which Ferguson always said, managers the key personnel, and you get it that badly wrong, you should be thinking about falling on the sword. It's my opinion. But anyway, we digress. So, what is your prediction for the weekend, Paul? Do you think United are going to beat the Baggies?
No, I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. There you go. That's my suspicion. This is a terrible season off between these two sides, and obviously United have much more quality, although West Brom do have quality. You mentioned Berahino, Morrison, a fine player. Their purchase of Victor Anichebe seems rather optimistic, and they've obviously hugely missed Lukaku, who they had on loan last season. We just have every chance of being completely abject, It's just entirely possible. I think we've got enough going forward that will definitely cause them problems, unless Moyes really does play some ridiculous 4-4-2. And I mean, I don't mean it's ridiculous to play 4-4-2, but it's like that systematically ridiculous 4-4-2 that he played against Fulham, and Olympiacos indeed. But no, I think 2-2. What do you think, Ed?
I think it's going to be a thrilling game, and United are going to edge this one 1-0.
Considering we've just spent quite a long time before the game making travel arrangements for you to come and see this game, and it's quite logistically complicated. You're a really good advert for the thing you said earlier about how you go and see the team whatever happens, whatever you think's going to happen.
I'm not going to see United. I'm going to see Bafuma Kalusa, just because he's got the best name in football.
Yes, it's a pretty good name. Adnan Januzaj is in with a shout of one of the best names in football, especially when the subtitles on BBC News had him down as Adrian Janet Jazz Jam.
Jazz Hands.
Adrian Janet Jazz Jam. It's like the subtitles guy had 3 goes at getting it right, but ended up just giving up and calling it a day. Talking of which, it's time for us to call this episode of the Rantcast a day, but we're not giving up. We will be back next week, and if you want to get hold of us in the meantime, you can get me at UTD Rantcast, you can get Ed at United Rant on Twitter, you can get us both at facebook.com/United Rant, and read all the good stuff on unitedrant.co.uk. If you want to help out with bandwidth costs, that really is very much appreciated at unitedrant.co.uk/donate. And thank you very much to everyone who's done that and helped to keep the show free and ad free and not generating any revenue for anyone.
Very good, and we'll see you next week after a mega win against the Baggies.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.